Hello, my name is Kyla Jean. Today I'm going to be giving a presentation on tillage in the Midwestern region of the United States and why it's an issue. Living in southern Michigan, no matter where I go, there are fields that have been tilled excessively to prepare for the next season. Tilling is the practice of turning over topsoil in order to prepare a crop or a plot of land for planting seeds. This is done for a multitude of reasons. One of the main reasons it's done, though, is to allow a weed-free, insect-free, and competition-free environment so that the seedlings can grow abundantly. This can also be done to aerate the soil so that it is more porous, the water can reach the seedlings more easily, and there is increased air circulation. It may seem beneficial at first glance, however, tilling comes with an extremely damaging cost to the crops in the Midwestern region. It completely disrupts soil health and depletes essential nutrients. Tilling also removes gigantic populations of microorganisms which keep the decomposition process under control. All this combines together and it threatens the foundation of sustainable farming. Erosion is one of the main side effects of tilling, and it in fact does the exact opposite of what the farmers need. Because tilling is done over and over and over during the harvest season, it completely removes all the nutrients and microorganisms from the soil, essentially giving way to what is dust. This can make it to where soil in different states essentially has the same exact makeup, and that isn't a good thing. Instead of retaining water, the soil sludges, making it really easy for runoff. So not only in part does tilling destroy the top layer, but erosion completely finishes off the job and gives way to loss of fertile land and reduced crop yield. Another consequence of tilling comes with the fact that there is raw carbon in the ground, and tilling disturbs the carbon into the atmosphere where it mixes with oxygen and creates carbon dioxide bursts. Because the ground has these bursts of carbon dioxide, it heats and absorbs solar radiation from the sun quicker, which further kills microorganism growth. Another consequence that pairs with tilling is complete compaction. This occurs when a piece of heavy-weighted machinery is on top of the weakened soil. This then forces the air out of the spaces between the soil grains, and it makes the ground extremely dense. Compaction and erosion pair together. This prevents water from seeping through so easily, and when it contains this combination, during rainfall or field irrigation, water cannot properly disperse evenly across the length of a field that has area where it's both unable to retain water and absorbs it too quickly. This also creates an extremely dangerous situation for a farmer if a tractor is tilling on top and the ground gives way during an operation. So, what makes Midwestern topsoil so fertile and so important? Yes, it is indeed true that the Midwest has some of the most fertile topsoil in the entire continental U.S. This is because nearly 20,000 years ago, the Great Lakes region did not yet exist. Instead, it was a collection of small river-like valleys because of previous advances during the Quaternary period. So essentially, much of the soil throughout the Midwestern region is because of sediment blown from huge mudflats on the banks of the ancient Missouri River, which was a major channel for floods of glacial meltwater. Once it spread across the Midwestern United States during the glacial melt, it became the ideal prairie land to grow and cultivate plants of all kinds because of the healthiness of the soil. The Midwestern region is also referred to as the breadbasket of the United States because it produces a stupendous portion of the nation's food supply. And with soil this rich for cultivation, most of the land within the Midwestern United States has been converted from tallgrass prairie lands to agricultural fields. Less than 0.1% of original prairie remains. Annually, the Midwestern region in the United States produces nearly $14.5 billion in agricultural sales, including grain and dairy. It's important for Midwestern farmers to be aware of this topic and quickly, because the topsoil will continue to degrade at such a rapid rate and eventually it will cease to exist. In order to combat this issue in a productive way, we should be turning our eyes to these two key players, which is Tom Vilsack, the 32nd United States Secretary of Agriculture, and the United States Department of Agriculture. His main role as secretary is to oversee and meet the needs of farmers across the country. He's also responsible for directly overseeing agriculture programs. This includes commanding the USDA. USDA is responsible for tackling rural developments, laws, and regulations from an agricultural standpoint head-on. Directly from the USDA website, Tom claims that he aims to lead the next generation of agricultural leaders and invest in children and families. Therefore, it is the USDA and Tom's absolute duty and responsibility to the American people to influence farmers to use conservation tilling practices and offer alternatives to completely destroying all the fertile soil that is left within the Midwestern region. As mentioned on the previous slide, there are several healthy alternatives to tilling. There are also alternatives that don't completely put an end to tilling altogether, but rather introduce the idea of a low-intensity and energy-conserving way to till. Of course, this comes with the cost of more labor, but it comes with a multitude of benefits. Conservation tillage practices can minimize the rapid breakdown of plant residue, and it also reduces the carbon dioxide emissions. There are several healthy alternatives, but two of the main ones I'd like to point out in this presentation are strip tilling and drill planting. Strip tilling is where you only till the strip of soil where the seeds are to be sown, not the entire length of the field. And drill planting is when seeds are sown in rows at a specific depth using a seed drill that mechanically presses the seeds down into the ground. Although adopting these two technologies would be incredibly beneficial, I also understand the reality that it is entirely impossible to convince farmers as a collective to halt tilling practices as a whole, because it has advanced to such an intensive process. This is commonly called target tillage. There are multiple methods, but here is an excerpt from Michigan State University. With ridge till, the seedbed is prepared on ridges. The soil between the ridges is undisturbed and the residue is left between the ridges, which is healthy for the soil. Another method is mulch till, which involves a minimal amount of disturbance prior to tillage. Chisel plowing is a common type of mulch till. An important aspect of all these different kinds of conservation tilling practices is that they still leave behind the healthy residue on the field, as this is something that would have normally been destroyed during conventional tillage. Adopting strip tilling, drill planting, no-till, or low-intensity tilling practices can drastically decrease the topsoil erosion and compaction levels, and the soil will finally have the chance to thrive and regenerate itself over a massive amount of time. But to quickly close with a fact that, of course, the surface residue from previous crops does indeed protect against erosion and compaction, but too much of it can keep soils wet and cool. However, this can quickly overcomplicate early season field work. So, in most cases, shallow, low-intensity conservational tillage is the easiest way to manage excess surface residue while also protecting against erosion and compaction concerns during field preparation.